Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Marius Darashkevičius. I'm so excited, actually. It's the last session, actually, the fourth session, and dedicated for restoration of architecture. And I have to admit, the time passed so quickly, actually. It's the last second day, the last session, and I'm, I'm also thinking that you are uh, thinking the same what I'm feeling, that it must be repeated, right? And it's just the beginning, as one colleague said already during the first session. So I have the same reflections. I'm joining with you and trying to support the organizers. And I wish to meet you once again, maybe not online, but in the real event. So during this session, we will have 3 papers presented by master students from Poland and Lithuania, and also we'll have 1 alumnus, which already finished, graduated master studies and working as an architect restorer. So I'm very curious about all 3 of them, and you are already familiar, but I have to repeat. Maybe somebody just joined for this session. So all the questions you have, and even comments or advices, but don't forget even just greetings. Maybe you just enjoy very much and want to say, because, for the presenters, it's very difficult. We cannot see you and how you reflect. So maybe you can have just want to support with your emotions. So just also leave the emotions, and it's very important for the students to have your feedback. And also don't forget to dedicate to whom you are asking or dedicating your emotions. So just leave your, in the beginning when you're starting to type your question or comments, and just type to whom you are addressing. Okay, so this is the same rules as before 3 sessions, so it's nothing new, but just don't forget to do that. And let's go to and what is the first paper. So the first paper is going to be presented by student of Vilnius Academy of Arts from Lithuania. And here we have master student Miss Emilija Dauge. She was born in Lithuania, and after graduating gymnasium, started studying in College of Technology and Design, and she graduated interior design. So the first background she has is interior design. Then in 2015, she studied in Vilnius Academy of Arts and got a bachelor's degree in architecture. So a very good combination, actually. After interior design, she upgraded into architecture, and currently, Ms. Dauge, she is studying restoration of architecture at master's level at Vilnius Academy of Arts. So congratulations, very beautiful, straight-up career. And her supervisor, Ms. Giedre Filipavic, is an architect restorer, certified specialist of cultural heritage protection. She teaches courses in urban heritage protection, scientific research, and restoration of historic interiors at Vilnius Academy of Arts. Ms. Filipavic's professional career developed in the field of architecture restoration in the most important institution of restoration field. In short, it's a very impressive career. You can find all these details in the brochures you provided. And a few more words. The majority of Ms. Filipavic's creative activities involve the conservation and management plans of historical cities and projects for the restoration and adapting of cultural heritage buildings. Among them are protection regulations for the UNESCO Old Town of Vilnius and strategies for preserving Vilnius wooden architecture. Yeah, here we come with the wooden heritage. And we came up with this paper topic, and where this idea came from. Miss Emilija Dauge, our master student of Vilnius Academy, she chose to present this paper, which is based on the work prepared during her summer internship. And she chose one of the most beautiful, actually, wooden buildings in Vilnius, although you will see how it is at the stage at the moment. And here I have to mention that probably in all the schools you have the same, but the summer internships is an integral part of the master studies and in the field of architecture preservation and academy. So here it was a part of the studies. And so Ms. Dauge, the stage is yours, and we are looking forward to hear your paper, which is titled Museum of Urban Wooden Architecture in Vilnius, Polocko Street 52, Interior Restoration, Recommendations, Summer Practice Task. So please start.
So, hello, I'm Emilija Dauge, and today I'm gonna talk about the Museum of Wooden City Architecture in Vilnius City, Polocko Street 52. First of all, I'm gonna talk about internship task, then about the object under consideration, the uniqueness of the object, what the conservation projects are being prepared, discoveries, losses, and challenges, and the last, the main concept of the room for restoration. Summer internships are an integral part of a master's studies in the field of architectural restoration of Department of Restoration. The aim of internship is to get acquainted with the conservation processes of the house on Polocko Street 52, which are architectural, construction, historical, polychrome research materials, processes of preparation of the project documentation and conservation works, and application challenges. The main task of the internship after the analysis of the research material taking into account the real design task to prepare proposals for restoration and adaptation of the interior of the cafe room. So the object chosen for the internship of architects in 2020 is currently one of the most beautiful wooden architecture buildings in Vilnius, the house on Polocko Street. The building is located in historic Sorbovo užupis in buffer zone of Vilnius Old Town. The construction of the building began in 1876. Davido Marija Šulska from the Vilnius Orthodox Monastery of the Holy Spirit built one-story wooden residential house on a masonry foundation and a storage building in a yard on a rented plot near Polocko Street, supposedly by the project of the engineer architect Levickis. The current image of the house was occurred after the reconstruction carried out at the end of the 19th century, according to the project of military engineer Antonovich's. A mezzanine of hewn logs was built in the former wooden house. A small entrance, a veranda, was built near the street, and the covered balcony was installed above it. A staircase was installed from the side of the yard. The built-in mezzanine was decorated with unique wooden carvings that have survived to this day. The building is characterized by the stylistics of historicism. Historical sources mentions that in 1918 to 1940, well-known artists of the time such as Konstantin Makovsky and Jadwiga Minska, writer Sofia Bikov, painter Ferdinand Ruchis, and photographer Jan Bulhak rented their apartments here and visited this building. The uniqueness of the building is given by the wooden carvings of exceptional beauty which adorns the entire mezzanine. The current shape and the form were probably given by a master who made gorgeous and original carvings and decorated the facades of the house with them. Open wall carvings adorn the entire balcony, above which is a small triangular pediment based on graceful wooden consoles. The windows are decorated with intricate engines. The small ornamental carvings surround the entire cornice. Corner locks joints are originally covered and decorated. An interesting multi-stage interior polychrome. The decor was revealed in accordance with the polychrome research performed by Neringa Šurkauskaitė Šimkuvienė. 3 main stages of decorations were recorded in the rooms of the building, middle of the second half of the 19th century, end of the 19th, and the half of 20th century. In first stage, the walls are decorated with the decor of the middle of the second half of the 19th century. Bezier and stripes, different colors, ornamented frieze, highlighted part of the panel. At the end of the 19th century, decor was updated with similar colors. At the first half of 20th century, the decoration is typical of modern or Art Deco style, decorated by imitating striped fabric of rather bright colors. Later, the layers reveal that the walls are usually painted in one color or decorated with roller and modest decor frieze. While preparing the Vilnius wooden architecture strategy in 2004 to 2009, it was noticed how many wooden buildings have survived in Vilnius, which are special. However, their condition is very poor. The rapidly growing 21st century capital does not offer much hope to preserving the entire wooden heritage. Therefore, the idea of establishing the Vilnius Museum of Wooden Architecture has been proposed for the preservation of information about wooden buildings. It was being proposed to store in the museum separate authentic carpentry products, elements of decor, and constructions. The goal of the project is to present the historical context of wooden city architecture, to acquaint with the surviving heritage of wooden city architecture and modern ecological wooden city architecture. It is planned to accumulate knowledge that is systemized and publicized to provide practical consultation on the preservation of wooden cultural heritage, to promote the use of wood as a renewable, ecological, sustainable building material in public and residential buildings, contributing to the sustainable development of Vilnius and other cities. Research and design work of building on Polocko Street 52 started already in 2005. Unfortunately, the handling works lacked funds, and there was a long discussion about the future purpose of the building. Currently, a restoration and concentration project is being implemented by adapting it to the purpose of culture. The project was prepared by the municipality's institution, Vilniaus Planas. The project manager is an architect, Vincas Brezgys. After the construction of the house is uncovered, the research works are being continued, and interesting multi-stage polychrome decor of the interior and authentic constructions reflecting the remodeling of the house were revealed. The new discoveries caused the corrections of the project and the search for more flexible engineering and technical solutions. The main problem that has caused the most discussion is straightening the geometry of building. Emerging risks to match geometry of mezzanine have been addressed, with one of the biggest risks to lose inside polychrome decor. It was decided to create an illusion using wooden decorative elements of the facade. The second problem was the use of engineering solutions, trying to preserve authentic view of rooms. For that reason, heating system designed in the ceiling construction. The resourceful solutions of designers were presented in order to do as little damage as unique to the unique building as possible. One of the tasks of the internship is to prepare interior restoration proposals after analyzing all the available research material. The room selected for interior restoration proposals are here in after 2S 1.09 cafe room. The walls of the room decorated in with the decor typical of the middle of the second half of the 19th century. The strips are rich blue, burgundy, brown, and gray, and the ceiling is gray umber highlighted by dark-toned stripes. It is the only room where the ceiling has been decorated. In other rooms, the polychrome ceiling decor has not been fixed. It has also recorded a fragmentary survived ornament imitating upholstery with sea green colored geometric and stylized plant pattern downward extending tulip-shaped garlands. The program for the cafe room to create lounge area with tables for enjoying coffee and socializing, to create reading room area by forming an open thematic library, to find a spot for compact authorized workplace for a museum employee, and a place for souvenir stand. After analyzing the data of newly performed polychrome research, proposals are the restoration and adaptation of the interior for cafe room repair. During the preparation of a project, the functional needs and planned activities of the museum in the part of the building were taken into account. The space of the room is planned for 20 cafe visitors. A small space is being created for educational purposes. A library area with a souvenir stand is being formed. The main concept of the room is to restore the interior decor of the second stage by exhibiting the authentic decorative elements of the first stage. The choice was determined by the wishes of the customers and the fact that the major part of the decor has survived from the second stage. The proposals include arrangement of furniture, examples of equipment and lighting fixtures. Modern non-obscuring space furniture is offered. Warm light tone materials and inactive textures that do not compete with the reproducible interior were chosen. The selected furniture is light, of classic shapes, emphasizing the elegance of the room. Transparent crystal glass chandeliers are used that will play the warm scattered light in the evening. Also, built-in hidden LED strips on the shelves are used to illuminate both souvenirs and exhibited books. In the exhibition area of the library, souvenirs and books, the polychrome of the wall ceiling of the first stage is restored and exhibited. The walls are painted in neutral warm tone in light gray by highlighting the decor of the first stage. A new door opening is being formed. The door is manufactured according to the analog and the color is selected according to the data of polychrome research of the authentic door that have survived in other rooms. In the area of cafe tables, the second stage of decor and stucco corners are restored, exhibited, and reproduced. The authentic windows of the room have not survived. They are reproduced according to the analog, and the color is selected to the data of polychrome research of the authentic windows that have survived in other rooms. And for the conclusion, the internships allow to get acquainted with the history of the building on Polocko Street 52, to meet the team involved in design and work, to discuss the emerging challenges and inventive solutions. It was seen how many opinions were presented and the conservation processes of the building and how many compromises were found to preserve the uniqueness of the building. The proposals for restoration of a room has fought to pay necessary attention to and respect to each stage of decor by planning of interior to make functional use of a small space and exhibiting and decorating with new elements. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for the presentation. With the questions, we'll come back after 2 more presentations, so please be patient. And the second paper will be presented by the Faculty of Construction and Architecture of the Lublin University in Poland. As I remember, the city has a slogan which says that the Lublin is the city of inspiration. Am I right? And it is indeed a very lively student city with a charming old town, very comfortable student village actually, which makes Lublin one of the most favorite places to study in whole Poland. So happy to have you here from a happy students city with a full of inspiration. And the paper will be presented by 3 master students from this inspiring Lublin city. They are studying engineering architecture, and we have Mr. Kostiantyn Pinkowski, we have also Mr. Pavlo Lazowski, and Mr. Alexei Lazarenko. Welcome. And the focus is the architecture related to the monuments. And a few words about their studies. Dear gentlemen, I would be very happy and curious to hear from you. But before we start, I would like to highlight and to congratulate you all. In addition to activities related to the university, you are actively participating in national and international competitions. And of course, here we have in 2020, we know that you received the first place in the competition for the Best Engineering Diploma defended in 2019. So congratulations, that's a big achievement and good for your CV and the future career, I think. And also let me to present the supervisor, Mr. Boguslav Shmigin, habilitated doctor, the professor at Lublin University of Technology. Professor is the head of the Built Heritage Department, and Professor Shmigin is very active and in the field of heritage. Just a few comments I can say that he's the president of International and Scientific Committee of Theory and Philosophy and Conservation, the chairman of World Heritage Committee in Poland, member of Scientific Committee Architecture and Urbanism, Polish Academy of Science, and he was the president of ICOMOS Poland. I have to admit, I'm already jealous for you all students. And Professor Shmigin specializes in protection and conservation of architectural monuments, theory of conservation, revitalization of historical towns, protection of historic ruins, protection and conservation of architectural monuments, world heritage issues. Professor Shmigin is also the author of over 150 scientific articles and monographies. Among them is the development of conservation doctrine in Poland in 20th century. And here we come up with the paper, which will demonstrate the goal how to preserve and to improve the technical conditions of historical building. And the title of the paper is Heritage Conservation Project as an example of restoring valuable cultural elements to life. So Mr. Pinkowski, Mr. Lazowski, and Mr. Lazarenko, please, the stage is yours. We're looking forward to hear you.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexei Lazarenko. Today together with me, two my colleagues, Pavlo Lazowski and Kostiantyn Pinkowski. Today we want to present some project done by us during our studies on revitalization and adaptation of historical buildings and how it was. But first let me tell you a little bit about us. We are students of the Lublin University of Technology, majoring in architecture. Together we have education as an architect engineer. We deal more with architecture related to monuments, so during our studies we also gained knowledge related to the business-oriented development of inventory using a 3D scanner, also using it while doing an engineer thesis and the master thesis, which you will see today. We tried to correctly design a new architecture without imposing heavy forms that will obscure the essence and the original substance of the existence object or environment. The 3 of us are studying and living in Lublin, in Poland. It is a very beautiful and interesting city to get to know, and it has a long history also. Then what we'll be talking about is our project to adaptation the fortress in Polocko. Polocko is located in the west-south of Polish, near the borders with the Czech Republic. The capital is located 4,028 kilometers from, and our city of Lublin 6,000 kilometers from. The early medieval artisanal and fair town has a great defensive location, just as it is located on the hill where the castle stood. Over time, the castle was modernized and expanded. This is what the fortress looks like at the time from the bird's eye view, and in this photo we can see how valuable the fortress is and what scale it contains. On the other photo, we can immediately present to you what areas we have deal with. On the right side of the photo, there is an entrance zone for tourists and residents of the city. On the left, entrance area for buses and cars. These parts of the fortress are very important for adaptation because they are connectors of the fortification with the city. Before the design work, we started with a precise inventory of the fortress using modern scanning technology. 3D scanning allows you to get a cloud of points from which you can read the smallest elements or destruction. This is what the whole fortress looks like in 3 dimensions, consisting of millions of points. And in the next photo, we can see how precise the inventory is with the help of scanning.
Okay, and I will tell you about the first area. And in this picture, you can see the character and condition of the space, which was adapted to a new function and obtained a better technical condition. This is the view from the main entrance to the museum area and seasonal cafe. And the next picture, this is a view of the parking, does not meet the technical requirements and contains a small number of parking space. We can see that the wall accompanying the cage is in a poor condition and should be renovated. This slide shows preliminary concepts and themes, which concerns the space development at the main entrance. The aim was to obtain a clean form that does not disturb the space with its size and additionally promote its comfortable stays for residents, visitors. The elevation was made in natural way using the existing wall which was renovated. Additionally, it was given colors similar to the fortress with the help of clinkers bricks used. Functionally, the building was divided into 3 parts: communication and parking, technical facilities, and the exhibition parts with cafeteria. Additionally, you can see on the visualization what materials we used and how the form looks in relation to existing buildings and the fortress. And now, second area, the development area included a security building and a nearby fortification element, Ravelin Polny. These are 2 architectural objects which we see at the entrance to the fortress. The organization and development of the space was an important role in the adaptation. The project included demolishing an existing security building and designing a new one with the addition of a new feature. The new building included the room for tourists to stop and rooms for resting bus drivers, because in the city there are not provided parking space for large buses, and the time of visiting the fortress takes from 4-6 hours. The new building was directed along the fortress line and used finishing materials that do not restore much attention to themselves and are not priorities according to the fortress. The tourist will always be able to extract the new architecture from the historic one. The second element that we are considering is one of the latest defensive elements of the fortress, Ravelin Polny. As of today, some rooms are used as a warehouse and are not available for sighting. The project includes the adaptation of all floors and the introduction of a new exhibition, museum, and educational function. On the underground floor, the entrance to the counterminers tunnels, which were built in the ground, was designed. On the upper floor, there are exhibition halls adapted for people with disabilities. In addition, the terrace was developed as a place to stop and rest. So from the terrace, open an amazing view of the fortress, preserving the historical level of the floor and the line of sight visualization.
Next, we will show you our project of Janowiec Castle, but a little bit about history of this castle. Janowiec Castle is located in Lublin Voivodeship in Poland, at about 15 kilometers of Lublin, on a steep Wislan hillside. It was built in first half of 16th century by Nikolai Firley, and then by his son was rebuilt. Then after
in more powerful form for
after a long history of this castle, before the Second World War, in 1928, an archaeologist Leon Kozlowski had taken over the castle, but his plans to reconstruct the castle were stopped by the Second World War. After the war, the castle was left in its former state, being of a many private castle. In 1975, the castle was bought by Nadwiślański Museum in Kazimierz Dolny in Poland, which is now.
So, for example, you can see a picture. For example, this picture is a picture from big yard and inside of the small yard, and the small chapel. And these photos
show how it is today, and how the castle looks like today, like a ruin.
On this picture, you can see the main entrance with the bridge, and this picture also too. And in the next picture, you can see
main
view
of the castle.
And our two project was adaptation project, consists in introducing a new form and protection the existing elements from bazaring and destruction. On this picture, you can see the form of the castle, and on the next picture, you can see the face. For example, this is timeline of the castle, which face in what year was built. We proposed function is to improve the technical condition and increase the number of visitors. In addition, all new volumes have been designed in such a way that they can be easily dismantled if necessary, which shows that the project has been carried out in accordance with the principles of conservation. The main function of new volumes is a museum and teaching space. The main exhibition is a castle, and for this reason, the materials have been chosen pure and simple in their structure. The volume does not dominate the castle, but complements the spatial void. In the museum parts, the goods and things belonging to the region and the place are presented. Also, the castle space is often used for various events and concerts. Transparent materials help it to preserve the essence of the place and allow to truly perceive the form of the castle. The whole volume of the castle has gained a continuity of communication, which increases the time of stay and gives more interest to the castle.
Next, I will show you another version of solving this problem of this castle. It will show that every single problem related with historical buildings has different ways of solving. There are two types of space within the room. The first space closed and the second open, in a contact with the outside environment. Communication within the site has been designed in such a way as to ensure good access to all parts of the site, regardless of their purpose, which at present are mostly inaccessible to visitors. These all new forms are close as possible, simple and minimalistic in order not to disturb the visual perception of the ruin. The entrance zone of the newly designed parts are located of the ground level of the castle, on the ground level. Whereas stairs and elevators has been designed on the highest level, there are rooms and spaces serving the museum. The main part of the newly designed building has suspended above the ruins of the walls below, in order to cover them from weather conditions, the coast devastation, and not to make them visible and accessible directly from the castle courtyard. The main objective of the project was to create as much open and transparent space as possible. The newly designed object must blend in with the historic fabric, all elements fused together to create a unique experience of observation and perception of the castle, which is not possible with the existing states of the ruins. Only two materials were used as finishing materials of the facade. They used a glass curtain wall, and in place where there is no need for a daylight, a solid wall finished with stainless steel panels. The use of these two materials together increase the visual lightness of the building and give a slight blurring of mirror image on entire facade to visually increase the size of the existing space. Metal grid also used to finish small architectural object on the castle ground level. Both simple shape of newly designed objects and the finishing materials used amplifies the unique character of Janovic's castle. Adaptation of the Janovic's castle into the Museum of Permanent Ruin will increase the number of people visiting both the castle and the village of Janovic. All activities are mainly aimed at ensuring the effective function of the ruin.
So it is the end of our presentation, and we thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, dear gentlemen. And here we have the last, but of course not the least, paper of today's fourth session, and actually the last of 2 days session, and it will be presented by Vilnius Academy of Arts alumnus, architect restorer, Ms. Rasa Soltonaitė. Soltonaitė finished her BA in architecture at Vilnius Academy of Arts, and after her studies, she rested a bit. She volunteered in Bulgaria and worked, actually, and after some years, she came back again to Academy, and she graduated Master in Architecture Restoration Program. Congratulations. And now, what I have to greet now, actually, after she finished 2 years ago, she joined Virmalda Restoration Company, one of the leading and most reputed, I should say, companies in Lithuania, and she worked there as an architect. So congratulations. It's a very smooth and nice career. And the paper which Ms. Soltonaitė going to present is the final work of her master's studies, which was supervised by Ms. Giedre Filipavic, which I'm already presented, so I'm not going to repeat. I just remind that she's the great urban heritage protection specialist. So I think for her, this project of master studies final thesis, I think it was very great supervisor. And here we come up with the last, this paper, and the title is 19th-century Industrial Territory in Kaunas New Town Area, Analysis of the Development and Regeneration Concept. And the goal of this project was to examine the analysis methods used in the work and understand which of those methods produced the most valuable results to help reach the project's final conclusions. So I'm very curious, and Ms. Soltonaitė, we're looking forward to hear your paper. But before, maybe could also you tell us a few words about the architecture restoration master studies in Vilnius Academy of Arts in Lithuania, which I already graduated? Would be very grateful. Thank you very much, and the stage is yours.
Hello. My presentation will be about 19th century industrial territory in Kaunas Newtown area, analysis of the development and regeneration concept. Architecture restoration studies at Vilnius Academy of Arts are the only practical master's studies of this field in Lithuania, considering that the bachelor studies course only touches upon the fundamentals of heritage protection. Those continuing education in the field can choose from a wide variety of subjects for their final thesis, from restoration of Renaissance-era castles to regeneration projects of abandoned historical cities. The latter will be discussed in this report entitled Karmelitai, the southern part of Kaunas Naujamiestis, development analysis of the concept and the concept of regeneration. The territory, also known as the Station District, is situated near Kaunas center, between Žaliakalnis Hill and the Nemunas River. This report aims to review what research methods were chosen, which part of the research yielded most valuable results to reach the conclusions presented in the thesis in question. One of the master's thesis essential tasks is to determine the apparent function of the territory under consideration and its importance in the city's context as a whole. Considering that Karmelitai were incorporated into the previously formed and structured Naujamiestis territory, some research covers the surrounding territory as well. After analyzing the research data, the thesis task is to prepare proposals of how this complex area could be revived. The Karmelitai territory began forming in the second half of the 18th century after the monks of the Order of Carmelites built a church and a monastery. At the time of building, these structures were outside the city borders, alongside a roadway to Vilnius, near the Girstupis stream, which flows into Nemunas River. In the middle of the 19th century, Kaunas city greatly expanded. The railway station was built. After the construction of the railway, it became the prime way of reaching Vilnius. During the 20th century, Kaunas territory expanded further, and the territory in question became a part of the city center. As a consequence of urbanization, the Girstupis stream was canalized. After analyzing iconographic material and historical research, a cartogram was created, showing the territory's historical development. The main construction periods of Kaunas Naujamiestis are distinguished as follows. Provincial Kaunas period, then period of the First Republic of Lithuania, period of Soviet rule, and Recreative Republic of Lithuania. One of the most important goals of the field research was to find a connection between the analyzed territory and the rest of Kaunas Naujamiestis. All buildings in this territory belonging to these four historical periods were analyzed to reach this goal. For each historical period, the most representative buildings of various types were selected for analysis. Then the most characteristic features were singled out. During the provincial Kaunas period, wooden and brick residential houses were decorated using siding or plaster. These buildings were of compact volume, richly decorated, and therefore do not look massive. Public and state buildings are also decorated. However, their volume is greater than that of residential buildings, and as such, they retain their monumental character. Buildings belonging to the period of the First Republic of Lithuania stand out for their massive monumental volumes, strict architectural forms, graphical facade solutions, an example, dark and light area compositions that are created using edges and traction, horizontal and vertical edging for joining windows, recessed parts of the facade, balconies with rounded edges, contrasting colors of the facade finishing materials. Socialist realism. Architecture features monumental, compact volume buildings where facades are decorated with classical architecture elements, plant motif moldings. Post-war modernist buildings were built after a slight adjustment of repeated projects, following the principles of free planning. Therefore, they stand out in the environment of Naujamiestis, detached from the prevailing building line on a large scale. Based on this, it can be stated that the features mentioned above of the buildings are repeated throughout Naujamiestis. Therefore, the territory maintains a coherent image. From the very beginning, Karmelitai territory was favorable for creating industrial objects. The Nemunas River was used for shipping, the Girstupis stream flowing through the territory for water. During the second half of the 19th century, factory areas began expanding even further following the construction of a railway station. A little later, with the establishment of a bus station in the area, the transportation communication function became an integral part of Karmelitai. Although some industrial districts are currently derelict and unused, it is important that these features did survive to this day, further strengthening the area's relationship with its inhabitants and environment. After analyzing the historical and iconographical material, it was established that the processes in the period of the First Republic of Lithuania had the most significant influence on the development of this territory. It was then that the district's aesthetic appearance and representative function became a concern. Squares were designed, streets' direction were adjusted, and the construction of buildings started to be regulated. Analyzing the documents related to construction stored in the Kaunas district archives of this period, the social situation of the territory began to be clearer as well. Representatives of the working class were living here, some of whom were working in the nearby industrial facilities. By summarizing the historical research conclusions, it can be stated that the population's social situation was one of the factors that prevented the territory from reaching full development. The inhabitants of the area, members of the working class, usually built one-story houses or carried out only minor repairs in their existing buildings. Another group was settlers, who planned to build two four-story houses with apartments for rent. Unfortunately, the latter option did not gain enough momentum to give the area a newer face. Comparing the drawings of unimplemented or non-surviving newly designed buildings in the archive with other buildings of this period, which are now recognized as cultural heritage objects in Lithuania, we see that they have the same features: volume, form, facade compositions, or finishing materials and details. It could have complemented the surrounding Kaunas Naujamiestis territory. Before considering the development proposals of the territory, it was essential to determine the possibilities of scale and height of the buildings. This was initiated by analyzing the construction projects surrounding the main street of the area. It should be mentioned that this street starts at Kaunas City Railway Station and accompanies visitors to the city center, so its representative function is vital. During this study, the following features were identified for each building: the construction period, materials used for the facade, height, function, and status in the Cultural Heritage Register. One of 3 classifications was assigned based on its current condition: authentic buildings, expressive in character, representative of their period; moderately expressive buildings, complementing their historical surrounding; or other buildings. Based on this information, the following building management directions have been proposed. Restoration according to research data, remodeling the facades of existing buildings without changing their height, reconstruction of existing buildings, changing their volume, or construction of new buildings. After summarizing the research results, it can be said that creating a more cohesive street view can be achieved by various means. In this case, it was chosen to preserve and restore some of the most authentic historic buildings and adapt the rest of the needs of today, preserving individual historic elements of houses. Construction projects in the second half of the 20th century have significantly impacted the historical formed urban structure. Therefore, it's crucial to determine how currently abandoned areas of industrial buildings could change without losing the distinguishing features of Naujamiestis. The conclusion of the master's thesis suggests accepting a historically established industrial function, adapting it to the scale of the central part of the city. It is proposed to create various small workshops near residential houses, thus creating a close connection between the local community. New buildings should be designed on a smaller scale, which is closer to Naujamiestis style, lesser in-ground coverage, but taller than surrounding ones. It is also proposed to utilize the existing unused street roads in the territory, adapting them for pedestrian use, making the Karmelitai district more attractive to residents of the surrounding areas and the city guests. The work proposes reviving the forgotten natural element of Girstupi stream in the new interactive forms, allowing us to better understand local history. To create an overall picture of the whole Kaunas Naujamiestis, it is essential to reveal as many expressive, authentic elements as possible that belong to all stages of its development. It is important because the connection created in this way will be even stronger in the protected area. More layers in which the new projects developed will have the opportunity to find their additional perspective. Thank you.
The last paper of this session, and we actually finished all the papers in these 2 days, and now we'll start the discussion. So thank you very much for the active questions. We have plenty of questions, so we will start as usual from the first paper, and for the first paper we have the most actually questions. So the questions are coming from different participants of the audience, and we have first questions for Ms. Dauge laite. Hello, Emilija, I can see you right now again. So the first question, it was from Milda, and she's curious, is there any preventive measures which was made for further degradation of construction on decor?
When I was in that building, there was just the stages of the works. So at that case, there was no works prepared for that polychrome and construction. So that's all.
Great. And from Indre, we have one question for you. Do you see any difference in working with the historic interior of wooden house and in comparison with a brick or stone house?
Of course, the wooden house is more fragile and it's always constantly moving. So all the decor is actually in a lot worse case than in stone house.
Yeah, of course. And we have a very joyful greetings and questions from the conference organizer, Ms. Dailė, and she's very happy about your topic, and she's curious, is the restoration project for the cafe room you prepared is gonna realized, or it was chosen different, or it was mixed?
I don't have that information, so we need to contact Vincent Brisgis and ask him.
We'll do. It's very curious. Maybe for the next conference we will see something, the final result. And another question from Ramona. She is curious how difficult it is to choose wall painting layers. How to choose which one to restore. We have one and the second one, and you offered the combination, right, of two. So how it was?
Yeah, the customers actually decided that for me, so there is not much work for me to do to suggest any. Just I chose to exhibit both, to choose more zones where to exhibit the first stage, and other zone where to exhibit the second stage.
Mm-hmm. And so this is the second polychromy stage, the yellow and the bright one. The question is it made? Is it wallpaper or is it painted?
It is painted, stenciled.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so we have a few more questions. So as the question is the project already finished or not? So probably it's on the.
It's still under the works. So.
Mm-hmm. So it's not finished. And the last question is. The decor changed dramatically from the very earthy and calming tones to the very bright stripes, right, in the second stage. So the question is, do you know the original purpose of this cafe room, or is it not known?
Was living rooms, so all the building purpose was for living.
But this room exactly was a living room?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So here's the question. If there are more questions from the colleagues, from the Lublin gentlemen, so please, you can ask or you need time to think. Then we will go on further, because we do have some questions for you, Mr. Pinkowski, Lazowski, and Mr. Lazarenko. So we have at least 4 questions I can see now in my computer. So first of all, Ms. Dailė, she's greeting you about a brave idea, how great your project you offered. And she is asking, do you share those ideas with the local communities in Poland? In the area of Dolny Kazimierz or somewhere else?
For example, with Polocko, the situation is that we, after completion of our project, we try to take feedback with the people who live in this city or with the people in another city, for example, with tourists, yes. And such way we consultate our project with architects and constructors and people who work in conservation, for example, conservators, yes. Yeah. And another way, I think this is way trying to do more people, more students. We try and put our visualization or our project on different platforms, for example, Instagram, Facebook, and Behance, where people from our city or another city and other countries can comment and can see or propose to us another project. So after this feedback we can use in the next project. For example, in Vilniaus, yes, because Polocko Fortress we do in 2080 year, and the Vilniaus we do in 2020 in last year. So after years we can use this information from other people.
Great, thank you for the answer. We have one more question from Ms. Aušrinė, and she's curious about the opinion, your opinion about previous reconstruction or restoration or conservation interventions into this fort. Probably she's asking about the first project. Any great destructive interventions were done, or it's nothing done yet?
Our opinion. That the work that has been carried out the fortress has a developmental character and have a good direction for the future, because fortress is a great object and work on still progressing gradually. The work on this temporary fort has not only improved the condition of the fort, but has also added share interference with the historical condition.
Thank you. And there's one more question about materials, actually. Ms. Indre, she's curious about the list of the materials. What kind of materials, according to your position, would be used for the new buildings in historical sites? So this is the material question. So could you provide us the list, actually, a short list?
We used materials.
We try to use in materials clean, for example, beton and bricks, and we try and condense materials. For example, bricks. Yes, we using these materials in our project, but not in more form. We mixed these materials and not put it materials, for example, metal, because new and clean metal is another. In visualization, you see we use the old materials, and they can
very well mixed with old materials which being done in buildings old. So we try to correctly use these materials to not disturb extinction material in such way. So it's something not it must be not very clean, if you can.
And we think that the cleaning material not destroy the view on the object. For example, glass. Yes, if you're using glass, you can see the object and the character of object.
Thank you very much. We have a few more questions. You see, your presentation was very stimulating, so everybody is so curious. So one more question. It's curious. In theory, could the function of the original fort purpose be adapted to the needs of protecting the city strategically in the next war in no time? So, or could you think about it, or?
For the fortress is 2 floors down in hill and another defend the city.
So you know the history of the fort, and nowadays also we can use in this fort for the different function. But I think that in times of war.
Not responsible.
Not today. Today, you know.
I have one more question from my side. Actually, I've been in this second castle you presented, not in the fort, but in the Vilniaus castle, a few times actually, and I do remember the surrounding very well. The Kazimierz, the small old town, which is very active in tourist way. I mean, and then there is a very beautiful small manor house, Monarch Manor House, right? It's like an open-air museum. The wooden 18th century building was moved nearby this castle. And it reminded me somehow this Pantadeusz with the, you know, this Schlachter wooden house, and then the beautiful neglected castle. So it's very, also those ruins are very impressive and beautiful, and it gives a very nice setting. Actually, it's very Pantadeusz setting actually, and and it's very inspiring, of course. And when I saw your project, it reminded me, after I was wondering where I not saw it, but of course, but where I felt this kind of a smell of idea, and it reminded me somehow slightly Berlin, and one project which was in 10 years or maybe even 15 realized. So there is the new museum and the gallery nearby, which is James Simon Gallery, maybe a few years ago just finished. So of course you do know this David Chipperfield grand projects. They really shaped the museum island drastically, and how they, you know, changed the museum, which was half destroyed after Second World War, and how they added the new wing, the James Simon Gallery. So my question is, do you see those objects? What is your opinion about the David Chipperfield's idea? How, you know, to work out with the project like this after second, you know, half destroyed building, and how to develop the rest area? So the Chipperfield's way of working with the heritage. So maybe you can give us some comments.
We think that. Okay, when we started with our project, yes, we wanted to find the cleaning materials and cleaning form. And in our project, when we analyzed the project of David Chipperfield in Berlin, our project is in our project you can see more object, but not new form. But for me, in David Chipperfield using this point 50-50. They show you 50% of new form and 50% the old form, what was destructed in Second World War, Two World War. And I think that this is two different forms and different object, because object in Berlin in the city, and we have our project in object. This is not object builded to object, but this is in, and we must show for tourists and for people who live in Poland and in this region. We must show that we defended the historical part, but put our small function. And after this putting small functions, the castle was working on himself. Yeah, you know, the castle must have money for defended his parts. You can see on the picture the castle was destroyed year by year, and after putting some function, I think the more tourists going to the Nineteenth, and you can go to the Nineteenth and see the beautiful form.
And also with this project, as in Nineteenth, we trying accept the historical forms and functions of this building, especially this Nineteenth, and try to correctly continue these forms, but by using modern materials. Because must be shown a different, that's old and that's new, but not destructive in such a way.
But of course, thank you very much for the very generous answer. And I think that's it. We have no questions more left for you, but if you have colleagues, please do ask and join to the discussion. And we have one question from Mrs. Sultanate, and the question is, could you please name a successful implemented regeneration project of a historical city site, which would be a perfect example to follow? So to follow this, so what would be?
Well, I think we have one great example in Vilnius Old Town, which was adapted very well, I think, for that times. So if we can choose only maybe different methods, but yeah, I think we can not look very far.
Great, thank you. Your paper actually, personal to me, is very dear because I'm from Kaunas. It's my hometown. So I not only visit Janovec, but I'm also familiar with the town you were talking. So thank you very much. I think the generous introduction about Kaunas 20th century architecture, it was very useful because probably our many guests from abroad, 8 countries, not everybody been in Kaunas and know what is Kaunas about. So now they do know, and I hope that maybe you don't know, but we also have that maybe Kaunas will gain UNESCO title in a year or sooner or later, but so the fingers crossed. And you offered the concept for the regeneration and development of the outskirts of Kaunas city center. So it's a very important topic at the time, actually, and even of course for Kaunas, which is gonna be so important if it will get UNESCO. And this district is kind of in the middle between the railway station, the city center, the river, and the hill, and the park. So it's a very, very important and interesting area to work on. And my question is very, I don't know, I'm even ashamed to ask, but I'm from Kaunas, but you mentioned this small stream, the river, right? And I don't know this river. Is it somehow under the ground or are there some traces on the top? I'm just curious. So my question is maybe looks very not smart, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, in this territory, I mentioned it's completely underground. But if you go up the stream in, I believe it's Mickevičiaus Valley, you can see the same river. So it's up the hill.
Okay, thank you. Because this industrial area is so scattered, it's so fragmented, and it's so different. It's hard to imagine in the project. It looks like a beautiful idea. So I'm very, wishing luck that your project could be heard, and the municipality one day will come back to you, because now probably everybody is focused on the main city center, but probably soon it will be faced in this area. So I'm very, very, very on this, and fingers crossed. And do we have more questions? Let me check the question screen. And if we don't have any questions, I do offer for you, because we are, I think, over 70 now looking to this conference. And if you have any questions, I think it will be easy to find any contact on whatever, Facebook, Instagram, somewhere. Please do contact, please do communicate, because these all students platform, one day it will be professional platform. So please keep in contact, all of you. And so I would like to thank you for all generous and stimulating discussion. But before all to saying goodbye and all the best for you, I would like to ask Dr. Dalia Klajumienė to share us the final remarks with us. So please, Professor, share with us the final remarks.
Hello again. I sincerely thank every one of you for the great pleasure of these 2 days that you have spent with us. And I am sure all the participants enjoyed listening to the extremely interesting presentation that revealed the extent of interesting and challenging tasks presented before the conservation students in different countries. It leaves me optimistic about the heritage and conservation of art and architecture. In the end, let me remind you that speakers of the conference are invited to write scientific articles based on the presentation they made here. I will circulate more details by email in the near future. Once again, thank you all very much, and I hope to see you in future. Stay healthy and safe, and don't forget to be wise practicing such an interesting profession as art conservation. Bye.